Hopes for a ceasefire this week in Ukraine are dashed as pounding Russian missile attacks continue. The Pope travels to Malta for important talks about the Mediterranean immigrant crisis. EWTN News In Depth travels there to preview his visit.
I'm head over heels in love with the mission of the university.
Leadership change at the Catholic University of America. My on-the-record interview with incoming President Peter Kilpatrick.
Catholic Governor Gavin Newsom has said he wants to make California an abortion sanctuary if Roe v. Wade is reversed. But Catholic and pro-life leaders remain undeterred in their mission to serve families in need. I'm Catherine Hadro in Los Angeles, California. That story coming up.
We head to the West Coast for part 5 of our series, Life After Roe, Debate in the States. And the role of godparents, the responsibilities, the rewards, and their gift to Catholic formation. EWTN News In Depth starts now.
Russia has repeatedly lied about its intentions. So we can only judge Russia on its actions, not on its words.
NATO's Secretary General expresses distrust about Russia's pledge to scale back military operations around Kyiv. He says intelligence indicates Russia is actually using its withdrawal of troops near Kyiv as cover to regroup, resupply, and reinforce its offensive in the south. Welcome to EWTN News In Depth. The war in Ukraine has entered its 6th week. The scenes of destruction are vast. While the fighting in Ukraine looks increasingly like a stalemate on the ground, the scars from missile attacks and incoming mortars remain. Russian troops have retreated from some areas where they met fierce Ukrainian resistance, leaving abandoned or destroyed army tanks and heavy artillery equipment behind.
It's necessary to understand that for Russian forces it's part of their tactic. This is not that simple. We know their intention, what they are planning, and what they are doing. We know that they're pulling away from directions where we hit them to concentrate in other very important directions where it will be very difficult for us.
In his nightly address to the nation, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned his people to prepare for powerful strikes in the Donbas region. Ukrainian officials also report Russian troops have withdrawn from the area around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, where they seized more than a month ago, handing it back to Ukrainian authorities. The soldiers reportedly dug trenches in the soil around the contaminated nuclear site and panicked after they started to experience radiation sickness. Satellite imagery of one of the hardest-hit cities, Mariupol in the south, shows gutted, charred buildings, vast blocks of rubble, whole neighborhoods leveled, destroyed from the air. The mayor of Mariupol says more than 100,000 people remain trapped in the city, many living in basements underground. So-called humanitarian corridors have been considered blocked or bombed. Desperate residents can't get out. Deliveries of food, water, and medicine can't get in. Though Mariupol has not officially fallen yet, Russia seems determined to capture it, even if nothing is left. Images of Mariupol destruction are being shown on Russian TV. But as the Kremlin clamps down on information and spreads lies through state media, state television characterized Russian forces as liberators and heroes and blamed the Mariupol devastation on right-wing Ukrainian nationalists. Millions of Russians believe Moscow's propaganda.
There is a huge part of the Russian society of people who are in denial, people who just do not want to admit that their country, our country, my country, is bombing civilian objects in schools and the hospitals, etc., etc. It's hard to admit it that maybe there is something very wrong with your homeland.
This week, President Zelensky granted a groundbreaking interview to 4 Russian independent journalists, a first for any Russians covering the war. But the Russian people did not hear Zelensky's pleas for peace. Russian authorities banned the interview before it was broadcast. Media outlets are forced to get creative in their attempts to provide timely information in Ukraine and fight misinformation in Russia. Most of those workarounds involve the internet and social media. But Vatican Radio and the BBC are also turning to an old technology, shortwave radio, used to communicate to the masses in World War II and the Cold War. Reporter Roselle Regis explains.
Fearsome and uncertain about what the future holds, people in Ukraine need reliable information now more than ever. As war rages on, many aren't able to tune into the regular cable news or connect to internet. Earlier this month, Russian troops bombed Ukraine's main television tower in Kyiv, briefly cutting off broadcasting. And accurate news and information is hard to come by in Russia amid a media crackdown there. Many independent and Western media outlets were forced to shut down their bureaus. This is TV Rain, a top independent TV station in Russia, the day it ceased operations nearly a month ago.
I
very much hope that we'll be back on air. How, where, on what platforms, and what it will look like, we don't know yet.
To get through to both Russians and Ukrainians with reliable information, most media outlets are using digital circumvention tools to break through. In Russia particularly, people are using virtual private networks, or VPN, to reach Western news outlets. But some media outlets are also going old school to help disseminate news and even hope via shortwave radio. The BBC decided to revive its shortwave platform on March 12, saying millions of people in Russia are turning to them to learn more about what's really happening in Ukraine as an alternative to state-sponsored programming. And in Italy, Vatican Radio has increased shortwave broadcasts to Ukraine and Russia, starting 2 daily broadcasts in the 2 languages last week. Plus, its morning programs to Kyiv and Moscow have been extended 20 minutes longer. Head of Vatican Radio, Massimiliano Menichetti, says the decision was taken to better respond to its mission, bringing hope.
Even if there is a war, much pain, suffering, we pray for peace. Pope Francis said, with war, everything is lost, everything. There is no victory in a war, everything is defeated. Vatican Radio pray for peace and try to build bridges.
This is WRMI, Okeechobee, Florida.
This transmitter site in the middle of Florida is also now broadcasting news in Ukraine and Russia.
And the more information that we can provide, the better it is for all involved, Russian and Ukrainian both. And that's what we're trying to do.
Kate Neiswender and a group of supporters launched the fundraiser called Shortwaves for Freedom. Its goal, raising funds for airtime to broadcast news as it happens in Ukraine and Russia. Radio Miami International, or WRMI, transmits that news via shortwave frequencies to Europe. Right now, Shortwaves for Freedom is broadcasting the Voice of America's daily program, Flashpoint Ukraine, in Ukrainian, Russian, and English, and they have enough funding to broadcast for 90 days.
Historically, shortwave's been used to get information past censors, past blocks of normal transmissions, right straight into the area that's needed most. In this situation, we knew that Putin was cutting off the internet, was cutting off normal broadcasts, was criminalizing journalism to a great extent, as I'm sure you know.
Shortwave is a radio frequency much like AM or FM. The radio electromagnetic waves are projected in certain directions, sometimes long distances by antennas, and then bounce off a layer off the atmosphere called the ionosphere. By tuning receivers, listeners can pick up the shortwave signals. Jeff White, the general manager of WRMI, says shortwave radio is always a place to turn to during a crisis.
Shortwave has often been called crisis radio, and it's something that people turn to whenever there is a crisis. The day after we started the Ukrainian program, we got a message on from a listener on our Facebook page. It just said, "Thanks from Kharkiv, Ukraine." A few days ago, we got another one. Thank you very much from Sumy in Ukraine. So, we get feedback.
Amid the ongoing war, media organizations and social media platforms are continuing to push information out to those in need, both in Ukraine and Russia, whether it's using digital backdoors in the age of technology or even relying on old school tech like shortwave radio. Rosal Regis, EWTN News in Depth.
Our network, EWTN, also uses shortwave radio to broadcast to people in remote areas where information is hard to get. EWTN Catholic Radio relies on shortwave to reach growing audiences in Africa and Latin America as we carry out our mission of spreading the faith. Roselle has another report on that exclusively on social media at EWTN News In Depth and on our YouTube channel. The humanitarian crisis from Russia's invasion of Ukraine exceeds the United Nations' worst-case predictions made at the start of the war 6 weeks ago. The United Nations Refugee Agency said this week more than 4 million people have now fled Ukraine as Russia continues to shell in places where Moscow had vowed to ease military operations. Half of those refugees are children. The UN says the forced displacement is Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. More than half of those who fled Ukraine crossed the border into neighboring Poland. Some have remained, others have moved on to other countries. The rate of refugees arriving has slowed, but still number around 30,000 daily. The European Union says women and children are vulnerable refugees who need protection against human traffickers, in addition to shelter, healthcare, school access, and work.
It is very scary. Mothers have nowhere to go. Nobody knows what to expect. We're very thankful to all the volunteers in all the countries which support us, but our people are in shock. We don't remember what a plan is anymore, how to make plans for our lives.
Many of the recent arriving refugees said they had waited it out in their homes to see if their city would be safe or not, before they decided it was too dangerous and gave up. Pope Francis and his Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, received Poland's President Andrzej Duda Friday morning, thanking Poland for its embrace of those millions of Ukrainian refugees. They discussed the ongoing humanitarian needs of the displaced and a potential visit to Poland to see the situation. While the world has largely been focused on the Ukrainian refugee crisis, other humanitarian disasters haven't disappeared. Pope Francis is concentrating on one of those this weekend when he travels to Malta to discuss the Mediterranean immigration crisis. Thousands of refugees in rickety boats have fled war and violence in northern Africa, headed towards Europe. The Mediterranean Sea is becoming known as Europe's graveyard because so many have drowned there. Reporter Colin Flynn traveled to Malta to preview the Pope's trip to this country with deep Catholic roots and the issue Pope Francis will be addressing.
With its pristine blue lagoons, golden soft sandy beaches, and slow, easygoing pace of life, Malta has earned the nickname a little slice of heaven on earth. The small archipelago consists of 3 islands, Malta, Gozo, and Comino, with a combined population of just 500,000 people. And this is where Pope Francis will be touching down for his papal visit from April the 2nd to April the 3rd. And here in Malta, the faith runs deep.
Right behind us, we've got the center of the Christian faith in Malta, because here we've got the grotto of St. Paul, where we hold and we believe that it was the place where Paul stayed here for 3 months.
St. Paul's Cathedral in Medina was founded in the 12th century. Built on the spot, they believe the apostles stayed for 3 months in the 1st century after being caught in a violent storm and shipwrecked off the coast.
And during his stay here, Paul, it is believed that he celebrated the first Holy Mass, he announced the Word of God, and he also baptized the first Christian people.
Pope Francis will come here to visit the underground grotto and will celebrate Mass at the very birthplace and centre of Maltese Christianity.
What does it mean for the parish here and for the Catholics in Malta to have Pope Francis coming to visit?
The Pope is the figure of Christ for us, and we're waiting for him eagerly, and he will strengthen our faith to grow in discipleship.
Walking through the streets of Valletta, the capital of Malta, you are walking through history. The steps leading up the hills from the harbour were built in the 16th century, built very shallow so the Knights of Malta could march up wearing their heavy coats of armour. And just outside the city is the Peace Laboratory, a centre for migrants and refugees, established by Father Dionysius Mintoff in 1971. And like other Mediterranean countries, Malta has seen a large amount of immigrants coming mainly from North Africa. The country has taken in approximately 10,000. And at first, the country seemed open to taking more, but attitudes have begun to shift, with many questioning if they have now reached their capacity. For Father Dionysius, he says immigration is nothing new in Malta. He's seen it happen time and time again over his 91 years.
What does it make you feel in your heart when you see these refugees coming to Malta?
They present migrants in Malta. But we have in our blood, the problems of migrants. Many a time, the whole country had to leave to Australia, had to leave to America, to there and there and there and there. You don't see those people only. You see also your parents, your relatives.
Father Dinas was here when Pope Benedict visited in 2010 and Pope John Paul II in 1990 and 2001. And now he is excited about meeting Pope Francis and introducing him to the migrant community here at the Peace Lab.
You're looking forward to it?
I am waiting for him any moment, every minute, as soon as he pronounced that he's coming.
On paper, Malta is a very Catholic country, with 90% of the population professing to be Catholic. But in recent years, it has become increasingly secular, with church scandals and a decrease in the number of people practicing their faith. In an effort to revitalise the faith of the people here, another site Pope Francis will visit will be the Marian Shrine of Tapinu, a hugely significant spot for Maltese Catholics, where it is believed Mary appeared in 1883.
What do you think the visit of Pope Francis is going to mean for the community here and for Catholics in Malta?
The Pope, for us Catholics is obviously the representative of Christ on earth, the vicar of Christ, and God chose Francis for us for this time, and so for us being visited by the Pope is something very special, very special. I think the Pope will come to renew us in our faith, to help us draw us closer to Jesus, but also to help us live in peace together, to respect one another, to grow as a church.
Like so many other countries across Europe, Malta has seen a decline in the amount of people practicing their religion over the past number of years. And so the church here is hoping that this visit by Pope Francis will help reignite the faith of the people in the country. In Valletta, Malta, Colm Flynn, EWTN News In Depth.
Our EWTN news crew captured many more images from the beautiful islands of Malta. We'll share more of that photography a little later. But next, a transition at one of our country's leading Catholic universities.
I believe that the Catholic University of America represents everything that's good about our faith and about higher education and about how we're to form young people.
Our one-on-one interview with the incoming president of the Catholic University of America.
What are my hopes and my dreams for Catholic University? First of all, I believe the way forward for higher ed in general and for Catholic universities specifically is to be an example for the world of an institution that places its emphasis on the human person as the supreme value in our society.
The incoming president of the Catholic University of America, Dr. Peter Kilpatrick, ready to take the helm as the 16th president of the more than 130-year-old institution. He's one of only 4 laypersons in the history of Catholic University to take the role. Kilpatrick says one of the challenges for all universities to overcome is the disconnect of academic disciplines from the larger context of humanity. He says he hopes to reintegrate the disciplines to be placed at the service of society. Outgoing President 73-year-old John Garvey held the position at Catholic University for 12 years. He's a nationally acclaimed expert in constitutional law, religious liberty, and the First Amendment. His legacy includes safeguarding the Catholic identity of the university by not wavering on Catholic teachings, an increase in student retention, and extensive campus improvements. He also promoted Catholic culture with unique events like bringing the Sistine Choir to the U.S. and expanding lay participation and leadership in the school's Board of Trustees. Dr. Peter Kilpatrick is a widely published scholar, holds patents in chemical engineering, and is an experienced higher education leader. His resume includes serving as Dean of Engineering at the University of Notre Dame, developing a strategic plan for leadership at Illinois Tech, and serving as the founding director of biomanufacturing training and education at North Carolina State. I spoke with the president-elect earlier this week on the campus of Catholic University. He shared a personal story of coming home to the Catholic Church and his hopes for his new role. Here's Dr. Peter Kilpatrick on the record. It's wonderful to be here with you, Dr. Kilpatrick. You told me the beginnings of a story, your conversion story, coming into the church, having not really been practicing your faith once you got married. And there was this pivotal moment when you walked back in, your wife is pregnant, and something happened.
Yes, my wife was pregnant, and I had committed to raising our children Catholic. So Nancy and I knew that we had to start going to Mass. We had to baptize our child. And so we went to the local parish. It was St. Lawrence in Dinkytown, Minneapolis, Paulist Parish. Father Tom Comer was the pastor. And we went and visited him, and I said, Father Tom, my name's Peter Kilpatrick, it's my wife Nancy. As you can see, she's pregnant. We'd like to arrange to have our child baptized. And you know, he looked at me and he said, you know, I don't know that I've ever seen you in my parish before, and it's important that if I baptize your child that you be practicing Catholics. And I was a little taken aback. I wasn't Catholic at the time, and I was like, gosh, was that in the fine print when I signed the agreement to raise my children Catholic? So I went to my first Mass in a long time, and it was delivered by a priest, Father Corbett, elderly priest, who just gave a beautiful homily about life. It was a story of a couple in Chicago who had had a baby. The baby had Down syndrome, and the baby also had a deformity in their esophagus. And unbelievable to me, the priest told this story that the doctor who delivered this baby for this couple counseled them to not correct the deformity and allow nature to take its course with the child, and they did, and the baby died. And so here I am with a wife who's pregnant, and it was just incredibly moving to me. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And my heart told me, Peter, you need to believe what that man believes. You need to practice the faith that man practices. And I pursued RCIA instruction. I was conditionally baptized. I was received into the church about 2 months later, and it was just the beginning of a great adventure for me. And I just fell head over heels in love with the church.
And it's been 41 years.
41 years.
Is this one of the reasons you're so passionate about Catholic education?
Absolutely. I believe the church is the body of Christ. I believe that the Catholic University of America represents everything that's good about our faith and about higher education and about how we're to form young people and adults to be all they can be in the service of humanity. So yeah, I'm head over heels in love with the mission of the university.
You have a focus on the hard sciences, biochem, right? All of these very different engineering type of sciences. Do you think that there's something very refreshing or new that is going to allow you to do something different in the direction at the university because of that? Because you bring together something a little more tangible.
I think they're both important. I'm actually as much of a humanist as a scientist. When I read for pleasure, it's philosophy and theology and history. And yes, I believe in scientific research. I believe in engineering. As John Paul says, I think there are two wings on which the human soul, rises to the contemplation of truth. And a bird can't fly with one wing. You have to have both of them. And so I'm very committed to and believe very much in the integration of faith and reason.
At the Catholic University, they've enjoyed enrollment of people of all backgrounds and faiths. Is this something that you plan to continue or invest in?
Absolutely. I think the reason people of all faiths are attracted to the Catholic University is because we're serious about our faith. And, you know, sincere Muslims and sincere Jews and sincere Orthodox Christians and Protestant Christians, they want to be in a community where people are serious about their faith, where people take faith in God seriously, and where they pursue their religion seriously. So I welcome them all. They're all welcome at Catholic University.
There's something really beautiful about the place that you're coming from, the Illinois Institute of Technology.
Yes.
Where the number of families and students that get lifted out of poverty is exceptional.
It is.
Is that something that you also plan to bring with you, this focus? I believe that Pope Francis talks a lot about it, the throwaway culture and how to counter it.
Yes, it's challenging for a university which has to be mindful of its own business plan to welcome students, poor students from poor families who haven't had an opportunity for a great education. And I believe we would be unfaithful to our Catholic identity if we didn't have a preferential option for the poor at Catholic University. But it will be challenging. It's one of my challenges will be to try to build up the economy of the university in a way where we can take a lot of students from the bottom 20% income bracket in America and help them get that great Catholic education. But I'm committed to that.
Let's talk about hiring for mission.
Yes.
At Notre Dame, you increased recruitment, both of students and professors, and also retention and graduation rates. I think that it was beautiful to see how you described the importance of hiring for technique, but also hiring for heart, zeal, as well as excellence.
Yeah.
How do you bring that to the table? How do you make that happen? Some people say that's impossible, that you have to sacrifice one for the other.
Yeah, it turns out, Montse, that's a false opposition. There is no conflict between hiring Catholic faculty for mission and hiring excellent faculty. In fact, the way to do that is to accentuate the Catholic mission so that people understand this is a unique place, this is a different place. And when you do that the right way, which is what we did at Notre Dame, the very best Catholic faculty in the country are attracted to your university. And that's how you recruit for excellence.
The Catholic University in the last decade has not shied away from controversies and from really asserting itself as Catholic, fully Catholic, in getting involved with the contraceptive mandate litigation, fighting for life in the courts, as well as defining that for the students with single-sex dorms. Is this something that you plan to get into as well, to be that beacon of faith that clarifies and also allows for those thoughts to percolate within the academic mission of the university?
I think all of those positions are simply Catholic positions. And I think our role as a university is to be in the heart of the church. So I absolutely will continue the policies of my predecessor, John Garvey, in those respects.
Well, I'm grateful for your leadership and looking forward to seeing what you do here. Thank you.
Thank you, Montse.
Dr. Kilpatrick takes on his new role this summer. EWTN News In Depth continues with our exclusive reporting series, Life After Roe, Debate in the States.
I'm Catherine Hadro in Orange County, California, a state known for its extreme abortion laws. But pro-life medical clinics like the one I'm in say now is a critical moment to reach families and women in need. That story next.
This is fundamentally a spiritual battle. So we have to be deep in prayer. We have to be deep in fasting for the pro-life movement.
The pro-life movement up against some big obstacles in the state of California. What's in the works to turn the tide? Welcome back to EWTN News In Depth. Our exclusive series, Life After Roe, Debate in the States, looks at what could happen in some key states after the High Court announces its ruling in the Dobbs case later this year. Our team of reporters, Mark Irons, Catherine Hadro, and Teresa Tomio, traveled across the country. We visited California, Tennessee, Michigan, Florida, Maryland, and Vermont. This week, California. A diverse state with an aggressive political agenda, it's one of the toughest environments in the country for the pro-life movement. In fact, its governor wants to make California an abortion sanctuary if Roe is overturned. But for pro-life advocates, there is a path forward. Reporter Catherine Hadro explains in our special series, Life After Roe, Debate in the States.
The state of California is known for its tech innovation, natural beauty, and Hollywood glamour. But the coastal state, with cities named after both angels and saints, might soon build a reputation that runs contrary to that rich Catholic history.
Here in California, our governor and state legislators have said that they would like to make California a sanctuary state for women seeking an abortion.
Gina Vides works in the Office of Life, Justice, and Peace in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. She says her mission to defend life can often be an uphill battle here in the Golden State.
Foster care is a big issue here because we have more children than anywhere else in the country in foster care. We have high incarceration rates. We are a corridor for human trafficking. And then, of course, abortion is legal in our state, and assisted suicide is legal in our state as well.
California has the highest number of abortions in the United States, with more than 132,000 abortions in 2017 alone. It has the 6th highest abortion rate when calculated over the state's population. And we may soon see those numbers climb.
So we have these trigger bans that are in place if, God forbid, Roe is overturned.
California Governor Gavin Newsom, a baptized Catholic, says he wants to make the state an abortion sanctuary if the Supreme Court reverses Roe v. Wade. The abortion lobby fully supports that plan.
We released 45 recommendations for what the state of California can do to ensure that we remain a reproductive freedom state, and we ensure that access to abortion is something that we expand and preserve for anyone that's seeking care in California, no matter where you call home.
Just last week, Newsom signed a new law making abortions cheaper for people on private insurance plans, eliminating things like copays and deductibles for abortions.
Here in California, the reality is that 60% of the women that have abortions are already moms, so they have children. We're in a state where the cost of living is highly expensive, while childcare is expensive.
Poverty is a driving force for abortion in California. In Los Angeles County alone, there are 5,000 pregnant women who experience homelessness every year.
We have a higher than average single mom with unsustainable revenue. Most of our clients live 200% below the poverty level. So it's huge.
Don Hughes is CEO of the Obria Group, a group of life-affirming women's health clinics with 18 locations. 10 are in California.
I have licensed professionals that do the treatments, that do the counseling. Everybody in the clinic is licensed.
There are more than 400 abortion facilities in California and fewer than 200 pro-life pregnancy care centers in the state, meaning the abortion industry more than doubles the pro-life footprint. Obria's mission is to build a pro-life brand that will rival the Planned Parenthood business, a mission that's becoming increasingly urgent here.
Is going to increase even more. Our governor has made it very clear that he wants us to be a sanctuary state for, even late-term abortions. I pray that we'll bring more people to our doors that have that last minute, I'm not sure, and that we'll be able to reach out to them and be able to help them choose life.
Fortunately, our pro-life forces here are very well organized. We have people all up and down the state, San Diego, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, Sacramento, who are working tirelessly to promote life. And so we have some people who are very smart, very energetic, and very strategic. And I think that no one here who's in the pro-life camp is going to give up the fight.
Dr. George Delgado is a Catholic Californian on the front lines of the abortion battle and on the cutting edge of pro-life medicine.
The Holy Spirit put 2 and 2 together for me, my knowledge of mifepristone on one hand, my knowledge of progesterone on the other hand.
The pro-life doctor pioneered abortion pill reversal, a protocol for when a woman who has taken the first of 2 abortion pills receives a large dose of progesterone over the course of a few days to potentially save the life of her child. Delgado believes abortion pill reversal will become an increasingly necessary tool to save lives in California and across the nation.
We see that over the last several years, the percentage of medication abortions or the abortion pill has increased to now 50% or more abortions are medical abortions instead of surgical abortion.
While California's abortion laws are some of the most extreme in the country, pro-life and Catholic leaders here tell me that convicts them all the more to build up a culture of life here in the Golden State.
We choose to stay here, those of us who stayed, because we love our state. It's just a wonderful state for many reasons. Unfortunately, it's become hyper-liberal and hyper-pro-abortion, and that's made it very, very difficult, and that's why many have left. But we choose to stay because it's worth defending. It's worth defending life. And we know that, as St. Paul tells us in the Bible, that where sin abounds, grace abounds even more.
As someone who serves parish leaders throughout the LA Archdiocese, Gina Vides sees firsthand how the Catholic Church can be a safety net for families in need as pro-life Californians brace for more extreme abortion laws.
Our parish leaders are the first responders on the ground. They meet with families, they direct them to the resources, and our parish leaders are as good as the resources we give them, right? So we want to make sure that we give them all the resources available to us, that they might need help maybe keeping their job, that might need help continue going to school. And we want to let them know that there is help here, that they can do this, that women are resilient, and we're going to walk with them every step of the way.
Reporting from Los Angeles, California, Catherine Hadro, EWTN News In Depth. As you can see, California presents many pro-life challenges. Joining us to discuss, Kathleen Domingo, Executive Director of the California Catholic Conference. She's helped give the pro-life movement needed direction in an often unwelcoming environment. Kathleen, thank you for being with us. California has trigger bans, the opposite of what we have heard about in other states like Tennessee. Can you explain what that means?
So in California, abortion is legal pretty much all the way through pregnancy. It's certainly legal to viability, and then at that time, at any time after that, for the life and health of the mother. We also have a number of bills this year that would even expand that, making California have some of the most liberal abortion policies in the United States.
And you live in a state where the cost of living and childcare is truly expensive. Are there any plans from the pro-life movement to help at-risk women with the financial burden?
We are working on a lot of bills this year that would expand paid family leave, that would help with housing, that would help with childcare, things like that. And on the ground, we're working with a number of agencies, pro-life pregnancy centers and clinics and maternity homes, as well as other agencies throughout the state that would help people on the ground, women and children and families, make California far more affordable for them and help their families to flourish.
What does maternity home outreach look like? Is it job training associated with that, or just housing and food?
It varies by agency, but we do have many here in California that have prolonged programs that allow women to have job training, to have some counseling, to have some parenting classes, and really get them on their feet so that when they are placed in a home, they can thrive there and have a long time in permanent housing, and so their children can really flourish.
In the report before this interview, we heard about other pro-life issues in California, like the increasing number of children in foster care, high incarceration rates, and California's reputation as a corridor for human trafficking. How is the pro-life movement engaged in these issues?
We see all of these issues as priorities for the pro-life movement, and we really try to have a holistic approach, whether it's through our legislation here with the California bishops, whether it's in the dioceses as we ask people to act and do some service around all of these issues. As you said, there's so many ways to get involved. There are so many challenges, but there are also so many people working together on solutions. And our job is really to unite all of those resources, and in a particular way, to offer Catholics an opportunity to get engaged.
Kathleen, we hear a lot about women, we hear a lot about babies. What about children? Didn't Catholic adoption shut down in California? Is the church able to partner to help children find forever homes, especially with the pending change to abortion laws? Doesn't that seem a little more critical?
Absolutely. And we work with foster care agencies up and down the state. So you're right that Catholic Charities is no longer able to do foster care placement in California, but Catholic families very much are. And so we encourage them at every opportunity to get involved with their local fostering agencies and to consider that a really positive action and something that's incredibly pro-life that helps those children and those families who are already here and already struggling. And that's something that we encourage all the way across the state.
So helping children at that age, but what about children in universities? Beginning next January, all public university student health centers must provide medication abortion services through on-site staff, telehealth services, or contracted outside providers. And there's no parental notification. What does the California Catholic Conference do about this? What's their stance on this issue?
A couple of years ago, we actually worked to support a bill, actually write and support a bill that mandates that those same health clinics on those same campuses can provide information on Title IX protections for pregnant and parenting students. So at least give those students a fighting chance to know what protections they have so that they don't have to choose abortion in order to feel like they can stay in college. At the same time, we're working with local Students for Life groups, other groups on college campuses, as well as campus ministries to help them understand how they can do a great job outreaching to those students and really resourcing them, encouraging them to seek help with local pregnancy centers and clinics instead of just going through the route of abortion on campus.
So offering additional resources and the life option. California then also established this California Future of Abortion Council. And it just proposed and passed the California Freedom of Access to Clinic Act, strengthening online privacy laws and creating new penalties for those outside of abortion clinics, so standing outside those advocates. How has the tech space leaned into the abortion movement?
So we're definitely seeing a lot of support throughout California, through all of our tech industries are very supportive, but through social media, through everything, really encouraging, unfortunately, in California, abortion as the choice and as the future of California. And our Catholic bishops have come out very strong saying, we see a different vision for the future of California, and we are willing to use every avenue at our disposal to help women identify really great social safety nets here in California, some provided by the state, many provided by our Catholic community or other NGOs, and to really transition and to challenge that vision and to say, what we want to do is we want to show women and children and families a better path forward and how they can find those resources.
Kathleen, you live in such a challenging state for the pro-life movement. What are pro-life advocates doing differently in your state? What sets you apart?
Right now, I think we have to understand that California is under siege. There's a deluge of over 16 abortion expanding bills right now in California. And that's a new and critical moment for us. This is not status quo. So the things that we've been doing in the past, I think are wonderful. I think they're great, but it's really time for people who are pro-life in California to understand this is our moment to step up. And if we look at those abortion bills all together as one package, we see that this is a moment of critical mass where we need to come together and unite those life-affirming resources, make sure that women know how to find them, but more importantly, make sure that each and every pro-life person in our state is stepping forward and saying, I will take on this challenge and I will help accompany women and I will help make a difference in my community. It's not enough, I don't think, anymore to say someone else's job is to do that.
So spreading the information, getting the word out, but also taking personal responsibility for this pro-life movement. Kathleen, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Nice being with you today.
Same here. Next week, Mark Irons reports from Vermont, where he talks to pro-life advocates who are very worried about a proposed amendment to the state constitution, racing against other states to be the first to make the change. Vermont already puts no restrictions on abortion, and the amendment could make that permanent. Mark explains in part 6 of our series, Life After Roe, Debate in the States. And to see our coverage from prior weeks on the states of Maryland, Florida, Michigan, and Tennessee, check out our EWTN News In Depth social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The Weekend Review is next. Some Republican support for the president's Supreme Court nominee. And at the Vatican, Canadian Indigenous communities ask the Catholic Church for an apology. And later,
accompanying people. Like, who should be doing that but godparents? And what if we were to do some renewed catechesis, simple, practical catechesis on godparents.
The important role of godparents, what you should know if you're asked to be one or if you're selecting a godparent for your child. We'll be right back. It looks like the votes are assured for our nation's next Supreme Court justice. That story tops the Weekend Review. Ketanji Brown Jackson got the thumbs up from a key Republican senator this week, whose vote will make Jackson's elevation to the high court bipartisan.
I came to the conclusion that she clearly had the credentials, the experience, the qualifications, and the integrity that I look for in a Supreme Court justice.
That support from Senator Susan Collins, combined with the 50 votes expected from Senate Democrats, would guarantee Judge Jackson will replace the retiring Justice Stephen Breyer this summer. This week, Jackson continued to meet with other senators following the conclusion of her confirmation hearings last week. Many of those were Senate Republicans who had not yet met her in person. Confirmation by the full Senate could happen as soon as next week. A Finnish court dropped the hate speech case against a Christian politician there this week. Parliamentarian Päivi Räsänen faced 3 counts of criminal behavior related to her comments in a 2004 pamphlet that described homosexuality as a disorder, a radio debate she took part in 2018, and a Twitter post in 2019. All of the comments related to homosexuality. The Twitter post questioned her Lutheran Church's sponsorship of a gay pride event. In a unanimous ruling, the court said it's not for the district court to interpret biblical concepts. Räsänen says she's grateful the threat to free speech was recognized and that the ruling was in her favor. Talk of reconciliation this week at the Vatican after Pope Francis met with 3 delegations of Canadian Indigenous who came to Rome asking for an apology. The meetings were part of a week-long visit first organized for 2020 and rescheduled citing COVID concerns in the wake of outrage in 2021 over the reported discovery of unmarked graves at the site of former Catholic-run residential schools in Canada. For more than 100 years, until the 1970s, state-funded secular and Catholic-run schools operated a government-led program to suppress the native language and cultural practices of Indigenous communities in an effort to evangelize and assimilate them into mainstream society. In the 1980s, former students revealed physical, mental, and sexual abuse they endured. And last year, hundreds of unmarked graves were discovered outside some of the residential schools.
I'm very, very encouraged by the audience we had today, going forward into our relationship, a new relationship, a better relationship, that of peaceful coexistence.
The meetings of the Canadian Indigenous with Pope Francis were also attended by the Canadian Catholic bishops. They said the meetings went very well, the Pope was very welcoming, and that he listened with great concern. And on Friday, Pope Francis made a historic apology for what he called the deplorable abuses the Indigenous suffered. He begged forgiveness. Our EWTN colleague, reporter Hannah Brockhouse, says while a heartfelt apology was the primary goal, the Indigenous did ask for 2 more things.
Access to documents that are held by religious communities that formerly ran these residential schools. They said they're wanting to piece together the history and the stories of these former students, and they think that there could be documents that could help them with that. Second thing was for help prosecuting priests who committed abuse or others who committed abuse against these former students, and they asked for Pope Francis's intervention, if possible, in making that happen.
The Pope said on Friday he hopes to visit Canada in late July to deliver an apology to survivors in person. The Centers for Disease Control has authorized a 4th Pfizer and Moderna COVID vaccine dose for people 50 and older, as well as a 5th dose for some younger people who have compromised immune systems. The move comes after the drug makers requested approval based on data from Israel and amid uncertainty over whether an even more contagious variant will hit the U.S. All of the new boosters are to be administered at least 4 months after the last shot. President Biden got his second COVID-19 booster on Wednesday, shortly after he urged Congress to secure more COVID-19 funding. He warned without more money, there will be shortages in testing and vaccine availability. NASA astronaut Mark Vehihai returned to Earth Wednesday from the International Space Station after spending a record-breaking 355 days in low Earth orbit. It's the longest single space flight by a U.S. astronaut.
Mark Vande Hei and Pyotr Dubrov back home 1 year after leaving the planet.
He came back to Earth with 2 Russian cosmonauts on board a Soyuz spacecraft, landing in Kazakhstan. Despite current geopolitical tensions, NASA says it's still working closely with Russia's space agency on station operations, a relationship the 2 scientific organizations have had for more than 20 years. We'll be right back with the importance of godparents and more beautiful images of Malta, the site of the Pope's weekend visit. The Catholic faith is a gift our parents usually give through baptism, and godparents are often instrumental in our growth in knowledge and practice of the faith. But what makes a good godparent? What are the duties and responsibilities? Simple questions with important answers. Reporter Mark Irons explains in this Catholic Life report.
Both parents and godparents make the sign of the cross on the forehead of the children. So it's parents and godparents make the sign of the cross. It's like claiming them for Jesus Christ.
At a Catholic baptism, the focus is on the baby boy or girl claimed for Christ and the parents who promise to raise their child in the faith. But godparents have an important role as well.
They're asked, are you ready to help these parents in their duty as Christian mothers and fathers?
Father Brian Nolan, a parish priest outside Baltimore, says becoming a godparent isn't about receiving a mere title.
It's both a gift and a responsibility.
For parents choosing godparents to sponsor their child, the Catholic Church Code of Canon Law gives guidance, stating there is to be only one male sponsor or one female sponsor or one of each.
A practicing Catholic who's been confirmed, they've received baptism, First Communion, and confirmation. It should be someone who's active in their Catholic faith, right? They're called to be a witness.
And the Catechism of the Catholic Church speaks of the role of the godfather and godmother, who must be firm believers, able and ready to help the newly baptized child or adult on the road of Christian life.
And which I think is very important for kids to have that role model other than their parents.
We spoke with Bernie Antkowiak, a parishioner at St. Isaac Jogues Church, about years past when he was first asked to be a godparent.
Kind of humbling, because I think when people asked, they said, you know, we really admire your faith.
Antkowiak and his wife are godparents to children of friends, and Father Nolan is a godfather himself to nieces and nephews.
What do you think makes a good godparent?
We're all like works in progress with being godparents. We could all do it better, but to be more intentional.
Both Father Nolan and Bernie Antkowiak say praying for godchildren is key.
You pray for their spiritual needs, their material needs, physical needs.
Over the years, they've tried to make time for them, attending birthdays or graduations. And Father Nolan says giving small, inexpensive gifts, like a prayer card, religious statue, or plaque with a scripture passage, can have an impact.
And I remember the things that were given to me, like from second grade. You don't throw away religious objects, you know, you were kind of given. So they're kind of, it's like once they're there, you say, like, put this on your nightstand. They might be on a nightstand the rest of their life.
Godparents don't often make headlines, but in one part of Sicily, they're actually being banned. In hopes the godparents will take their role more seriously in the future, the Archbishop of Catania says he has suspended the naming of godparents over the next 3 years because the tradition has become a social custom in which the dimension of faith is hardly visible. Father Nolan says godparents have a real opportunity to follow the call made by Pope Francis to accompany others on their faith journey.
Accompanying people. Like, who should be doing that but godparents? And what if we were to do some renewed catechesis, simple, practical catechesis on godparents?
A revived church focus on religious instruction for godparents could be a form of evangelization and cause them to take their own faith more seriously.
Pray about it. Discern whether this is a role that you're prepared to take on. And then if you do accept it, follow through.
Mark Irons, EWTN News In Depth.
God bless all you godparents out there for all you do. That does it for us. Next week, the conclusion of our series, Life After Roe, Debate in the States, with a stop in Vermont and a wrap-up analysis with our Reporter Roundtable. I'm Montse Alvarado. As promised, we close with more beautiful pictures from our EWTN News In Depth assignment to Malta. Thanks to our talented colleague, photojournalist Patrick Leonard. Enjoy our images of the week.